I'm pleased today to be able to talk a little bit about AFOSR, the Air Force Office of Scientific Research. We are the basic research arm of the Air Force Research Lab. And I'm also pleased to greet all of you today on behalf of Dr. Pat Roach, the chief scientist who couldn't be here today. Next slide, please. AFOSR, we're about 200 people, and we have a budget of about $450 million, but we're highly focused on basic research. High risk, high reward, basic research, typically open and publishable. About 70% of our money goes outside the Air Force to academia and to industry. About 30% goes to our teammates within AFRL's technical directorates, also to do basic research. And the real thing that we bring to the fight is access to the world's best people, literally the entire world. We joke that the sun never sets on AFOSR. We have offices around the world: London, Tokyo, Santiago, Chile. New offices open in Melbourne and in Brazil. And so we strive to take the Air Force's challenges and find the best people in the world to discover new science that solves those problems and also finds new things, new opportunities for us to do with our science. Next slide, please. So, to put our mission in a nutshell, discovering basic science is what we do. But of course, there's a National Science Foundation, and our friends in the National Science Foundation do an excellent job of funding basic research. However, that's the community funding the community. Our goal is to fund researchers that shape the Air Force's challenges and help solve them. So our strategy is to be in dialogue with the community, both in industry and in academia, to find those hidden nuggets of information that really cause innovation and disruptive change. And then, because change is scary, every time there's a new opportunity, there's often a new vulnerability. One of our roles is to be a champion for basic research and for those results, and to work with our colleagues within the Air Force Research Lab to speed those breakthroughs to the warfighter. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk a little bit about basic research. One thing that you'll notice from the last few days is that it's incredibly multidisciplinary. And so it's hard to do that justice in just a few minutes of talking. But I'm going to start by just holding this slide and looking at the three words for our meeting today: trusted AI at scale. Imagine what each one of those words means 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. We know that AI is going to continue to evolve. I personally use AI in discovery in the plasma physics context, and already new algorithms are coming out every day that I need to keep track of. Trusting that in life-threatening or life-sustaining situations, that is going to change how we work as teams, human-machine teaming, things like that. That is obviously going to change over the next 5, 10, 20 years. And then what we mean by at scale, I think, changes. Today we're doing amazing things with systems flying, say, across the country. But what if they have to fly into the Pacific? What if they have to fly into the Pacific in May during monsoon season? And what happens if we have to fly into the Pacific with an adversary that is pumping huge amounts of electromagnetic energy into the environment? How does the hardware that we're using to do our AI change? How do we trust that that AI is robust in the face of new and novel environments? All those kinds of things are open questions that we strive to answer, again, on the 5, 10, and 20-year time scale. Next slide, please. This is a little bit of an eye chart, and so I apologize at that, but these are the programs that are working in the broad question of how we solve trusted AI at scale. I'm going to call out a few of them by name. One of them is Trust and Influence. Dr. Laura Steckman will be speaking in a few minutes, and she is our Trust and Influence Program Officer and looks at really important questions on what trust and trustworthiness means, both mathematically, psychologically. What does it mean to implement those systems to build better human-machine teams? Another person that I want to bring up is Dr. Brett Pokinas, Test Science for Test and Evaluation. Mr. Allen raised the fantastic point that how we test and evaluate a system that's evolving is an open question. The science of how to do that, the fundamental question of how you do that correctly, is an open question. Also going to bring up the Dynamics and Control portfolio, Dr. Fred Levy. who looks very much in advancing the art of formal methods and the questions of what can that bring to being assured that the system, the AI system, is doing what it needs to do. And also I'd like to bring up Dr. Doug Ryken, who is our learning expert and looks at how different kinds of learning all implement. Now, those points are just to wet your whistles. The real important thing here is the way AFOSR works is we have experts at all the program officer positions. The contact information can be found by Googling AFOSR and BAA or going to the AFRL site. And the real thing that I want to stress is that working with the Air Force Office of Scientific Research's program officers is the way forward. The other thing that I would love to stress is that all of these fields and all of these people are working together to solve questions like trusted AI at scale. And so the seams of these fields are very important. What happens at the intersection of what maybe doesn't fit traditionally in just one discipline? We're set up to handle and adapt and ask those questions and bring very smart people to bear on that problem. Next slide, please. So we also want to reach out to our friends in industry. Next slide. Very specifically, we work with the SBIR and STTR programs, as well as the AFWorks, SpaceWorks, and AFWorks Spark, which are our enlisted officers, and AFWorks Prime. All of these programs are collaborations where we champion the basic science that are being discovered in the 6-1 basic research programs to rapid deployment through these organizations. These organizations are designed to take those innovations and make them robust for the warfighter. The other thing I'd like to stress is that our broad area announcement and our collaboration with the AFRL TDs creates a network, an ecosystem, if you will, of people that are looking at all of these questions. And there are all kinds of collaborations. And I think one thing that AFOSR does particularly well is both formal and informal collaborations. To put this in context, in my own portfolio, I'm lucky to have primes from Boeing, from Lockheed, from Northrop Grumman that come to my reviews because they want to see the basic science that's being done by our outstanding researchers. They want to meet the super genius graduate students that are working today. The joy of funding the best people in the world is part of what I get to do at AFOSR, and then working with the best and brightest around the world in all kinds of organizations is what we do. And we're pleased to be able to be here today to support that kind of creation of an ecosystem. Next slide, please. So again, just to foot stomp that, we believe that science is a contact sport. I've given you a couple formal BAA locations to look for. We're also on all the major social media, as the cool kids say, hashtag AFOSR. And also I want to point out, please check the APAN site, where there's lots of details on when our reviews are, and please reach out to us and help us make the world a better place for trusted AI at scale. And with that, I'll be happy to take any questions.